All right, let's go ahead and start with the graphing part of the review. So for the first one, with the 2x minus y equals 5, if you want to do the zeros, that would be great to do. Remember, if x is 0, then what I'm going to essentially do is cover up x. And when I look at what's left, I have negative y equals 5. Well, if negative y equals 5, then that means regular y equals 5, because essentially there's like a negative 1 in front of this y, and to get y by itself, I would divide by negative 1. And when I do that, y becomes negative 5. And then if y is 0, I cross that out, and then I have this little problem of 2x equals 5. And so when I'm done dividing, I figure out that x is 2.5. So if y is 0, then x is 2.5. So we can go ahead and put those points on there. 0, negative 5, 2.5, 0. I'm just going to estimate. And then I'm going to take my straight edge, and I'm going to graph these two lines. And you should use a straight edge, not what I'm going to do again. All right, my next line, I'm also going to do the zeros. So if x is 0, put that over here. Then when I look at what's left, it's telling me what y is. Y is negative 3, so I'm going to go to the point 0, negative 3. And then if y is 0, I'm going to cover it up. And again, right now it's negative x equals negative 3. Well, that's like a negative 1 in front of that x. So if I just divide, then x is worth 3. And now I'm going to take my straight edge and graph these. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and graph this line. And use your straight edge. And then when I look at where these 2 points meet, they meet right here. And so I'm going to estimate what I think that point is. And for me, I'm going to say that point is 2, negative 1. Okay? All right, let's go to the second one. So on the second one, with the 2x minus 3y equals negative 6, again, what I would do if I were you is I would do the zeros. So I'm going to start by making x be 0. So if x is 0, cover it up. And then to solve for y, I'm going to divide by this negative 3. And that gives me y to be 2. So I'm going to go ahead and put that point on there. And then if y is 0, I cover up y. And then I have a little math problem, 2x with negative 6. So when I divide by 2, I get x to be negative 3. So I'm going to go where x is negative 3. Go ahead and um, draw my line. And now I'm going to graph the other line. And again, on this one, I'm going to do the zeros. So if x is 0, now be careful. X is the second term here, so make sure you cover up the right thing. If x is 0, then I have negative 3y equals 3. When I divide by negative 3, I get y to be negative 1. And then if y is 0, so I'm going to cover up the y now. Then I have 2x with 3. I just divide by 2, and then I get x to be 1.5, which I'll just estimate. And then I can take my straight edge and graph these. Now, for this one, those points are pretty close, so I'm going to add a few more points by looking at what I think the slope is. The slope from this point here goes up 1 and over 1.5, so I'm just going to do that a couple times. Up 1 and over 1.5, up 1 and over 1.5, and then maybe one more time, up 1 and over 1.5. And then I get a better sense of the line. So I'm going to graph these. And as it turns out, these two lines are parallel. So parallel lines mean no solution. All right, let's go to number 3. So in number 3, I wrote careful. Now, of the lines that I want you guys to graph first, I want you to graph just the x one. So we're going to start with the x plus y is less than or equal to 0. But first, I'm going to subtract the 2 to the other side. And then I'm going to go on the x-axis to negative 2. And I'm going to draw my x's depressed line. Now, when I shade, shading less than negative 2 is going to put all my shading right now to the left of this green line. Okay? And now I'm going to graph the other line. And it's this one that you really need to be careful because it almost is in y equals mx plus b, but right now it's negative y. So that's like a negative 1 being there. So what I'm going to do is just take everything times negative 1, and when I take everything times negative 1, the y turns positive, the negative 2x turns positive. Let's go ahead and add the opposite here. And then the negative 3 turns positive. But don't forget that when you multiply or divide with negative numbers and inequalities, that inequality sign also has to change. So I'm going to graph 2x plus 3. So I'm going to go up the y-axis, not the x, to 3. And then positive slopes go uphill, so I'm going to go up 2 and to the right 1. And I'll do that a couple of times. And I'll go down 2 and to the left 1. And I'm going to connect these points for my line. So now I have to figure out in my yellow area, am I going to have the big shaded yellow area, or will it look more like a kind of the smaller triangular yellow area? So I'm going to test the point 0, 0. I'm going to see if it works. And notice that the point I'm testing, if it did work, will make the smaller area work. So I'm just going to put 0, 0 in, and I'm actually going to put it into my my new version of the equation. I'm going to put it into here. So if I put 0 in for y, I get 0. And when I put 0 into 2x plus 3, that becomes 2 times 0 plus 3, which is just 3. And then when I'm done, 0 is not greater than 3. So I shouldn't shade where that x is. Instead, all the points that are going to work are going to be on the other side of the red line. But I'm only going to shade the part that I need, not all of it, just this. So the part that has the yellow and red, this is my final shaded area. Okay? All right, let's go to the last one. The first thing I'm going to do is get my y flies by line. So I'm going to go up to the y-axis at 2, draw a line, and I'm going to go ahead and shade. So less than 2 would put my final shaded area below. And now I'm going to get the x's to press. So I'm going to go to the x-axis as 3, and I'm going to put a vertical line through it, dashed, if you hopefully remember that. And then since x is greater than 3, right now my final shaded area is over here. Now for the other one, I'm going to go ahead and do the zeros. This is a good one to rearrange. If you did want to rearrange it, you want to subtract the 2x over. So that's negative 2x plus 4, but I want you guys to get used to doing the zeros. So if x is 0, cover up x, and they tell me what y is. Y is 4. So I'm going to go to where the y-axis is 4. And then if y is 0, now what I'm going to do is cover up the y, and I have 2x with 4, so to get x by itself, I divide by 2. That's going to make my x worth 2. So I'm going to go to the x-axis is 2 and connect those, solid line. So when I'm done, my final shaded area, if I look at the green part, it's either going to be the bigger part of the green or the smaller triangular part of the green. So I'm going to test 0, 0. And you can test it in your new equation. You can test it in your original equation, which is what I'm going to do. So if I put 0, 0 into 2x plus y, I get 0. And now I want to check, is 0 less than or equal to 4? And it is. So my final shaded area needs to be on the side of the green line where I just put that blue X. But again, I'm only going to shade the area that I need, so I don't need to shade the whole thing, just this part. And this ends up being my final shaded area. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and go to learning objective 3 for now. We're going to be reviewing everything that we've done this year as far as solving goes. Let's just start with number 1. So first, to get x by itself, I'm going to add 9. When I do that, I get 5/8 x equals 30. And now to get x by itself, since 5/8 is multiplied to x, what I really am supposed to do is divide by 5/8. But we learned in middle school that you don't actually divide by a fraction, you multiply by the reciprocal. So that's what I'm going to do here, is multiply by the reciprocal. 8/5 times 5/8 cancels out. You get x. And if you want to use your calculator, go ahead. You just need to put that 8/5 in parentheses. What I'm going to do is take 30 and divide it by 5 for 6, and now take the 6 times 8 and get 48. So that's my final answer here. X is 48. All right, on number 2, I need to get x by itself. But first, I have two x's. So what I'm going to do is move the smaller one, the negative x, to join the 5x. And I'm going to do that by adding x to both sides. Now to get x by itself, I need to move the 6 and the 27. I'm going to start by subtracting 27 since 27 is added to it. And now to get x by itself, I'm going to divide by 6 since it's multiplied. And when I'm done, x is worth -4. Okay, let's go to number 3. So number 3 is an absolute value. Remember absolute value. You solve it once exactly as you see it, and then you're going to solve it again, but the second time, the stuff in the bars does not change. It's everything outside of the bars. So I'm going to have -15. So starting to solve, first to get x by itself in the blue equation, I'm going to subtract 7, because watch, if I add the opposite, I move the 7 through subtraction. And I get -2x equals 8, and when I'm done with dividing by -2, I get x to be -4. So there's one of my answers, -4. Now in the red problem, my steps are going to be the same. I'm going to go ahead and add the opposite. I want to subtract 7 first. So on the left side, I get -2x. Over here, I'm going to add the opposite with that -7 so that you can see I get -22. And now when I divide by -2, I get my final answer of 11. So I have two answers. -4 is one, and 11 is the other. All right. Let's go to number 4. So I'm going to do a little racing now since I wrote number 4. On number 4, to get x by itself, I need to move the 5. I'm going to add the opposite, and the 14. So I'm going to start by subtracting 14. I get -5x with -20. And now I'm going to divide by -5. And this is a big step. Remember, when you divide by a negative, that inequality sign is going to have to switch directions. So when I'm done, I'm going to get x is less than 4. And that's it. That's my only answer for this one. Okay? All right, let's go to number 5. So number 5, this is actually two problems. One problem is x minus 13 is less than or equal to 20. So to get x by itself, I'd have to add 13. And then the other problem is 1 is less than or equal to x minus 13. So to get x by itself, I would add 13. But instead of doing that twice, I'm just going to do it once. So to get in the middle, the x by itself, I'm going to add 13 to the middle, to the right, and to the left, to every side. So the left side becomes 14, and the right side becomes 33. So when I'm done, there's my answer. Put it here. My answer is between and including 14 and 33. Okay? All right, let's go to number 6. Number 6 and 7 are absolute values. So don't forget on absolute value, you're going to have two answers. So the first time, nothing in the bar changes. The second time, again, nothing in the bar changes, but everything outside the bar changes, including the inequality sign. So either way, in both problems, I'm going to I'm going to add 9. So in the blue problem, I get 7x is greater than or equal to 21. And now when I divide by 7, I get x is greater than or equal to 3. And in the red problem, I'm also going to add 9. This time, I'm not going to get 21 out of it. This time, I'm going to get a -3 out of it. So I'm going to divide by 7. And then here's my other answer. X is less than or equal to -3/7. So it's these two answers. The x is greater than 3. X is less than or equal to -3/7. I'm going to put on the number line. -3/7 is smaller, so it's going to go on the left. And 3 is larger. And for the 3, it's going to be greater than 3. And for the negative 3 at 7, so it's going to be less than the negative 3 sevenths. All right, number 7. So for number 7, again, set it up twice. Once as is, and then the second time you solve it, the stuff in the bars does not change, but everything, including the inequality, does change. So either way, I'm going to add 7. In the blue problem, I get 8. So there's one answer. And in the red problem, when I add 7, I don't get 8. Instead, I get 6. So putting them on the number line, 6 is smaller, 8 is bigger. For the 8, close my circle, they're all less than 8. And then I just realized I wrote this inequality sign wrong. Let me fix that. Still writing it wrong. Hold on. For the 6, it's going to be bigger than 6, so my answer is in between 6 and 8. All right, for the next couple problems, I don't have room here on my paper, so I'm going to put them on a separate piece of paper. So I'm going to put 8, 9, and 10 on a different piece of paper. All right, and in your notes, just so you know, in your notes, 8 through 11 are in your notebook for law of sine and law of cosine formulas. But on the test, they will be given to you. So the first thing I'm going to do is the given. I'm going to fill everything in. So big B is 30, little a is 80, and little c is 70. And initially when I look, I don't see cousins. So I have to use law of cosine. And which of the 3 law of cosine formulas should I use? I'm going to use the one with b's, because since I'm given angle b, little b is what I'm going to find first. So it goes b squared equals a squared plus c squared, and then minus 2 times a and c, and then times cosine of big B, which we know, it's 30. And then this is the one where you can type this whole thing into your calculator. And when you do that, you get 1,600.5, and this is a rounded decimal. Now that's b squared. To get b, I still need to square root, and when I do that, I get about 40. So there's one answer. And now what happens, so that was my first step, I have cousins. So now in my second step, I can use the cousins, 40 with sine of 30, to find the other ones. And I'm going to find C first. I want you guys to go for the smaller angle first. So 70 with sine of big C. And then this is your cross products step. So I will take on the calculator sine of 30 times 70. Careful with the parentheses when you type that in. And when I'm done, whatever that is, 40 times the sine of C should be the same number. So sine of 30 times 70 on the calculator is 35. And now to get C by itself, what I'm going to do is divide by 40. Because to get C by itself, I have to move the 40 in the sign. So the first thing I'm going to do is move the 40. And when you divide there, you get 0.875. And now to get C by itself, to move sign, you do the inverse sign. So I do that over here, that cancels out, and then on your calculator, you're going to type second sign to get that sign -1 to appear. And when you're done, you get big C to be about 61. So what I'm going to do is go back up to my answers. Big C is about 61. And then I can find the other angle, because remember the 3 angles add up to 180. So if I have 30 and 61 so far with 180, that means A should be 89 degrees. Okay? All right, let's go to number 9. First thing I'm going to do is take my information, put my cousins or my stuff into the box. So I know big B, I know little a, and I know little c. Same type of problem as number 9. Since I have big B, I'm going to find little b first. So b squared equals 15 squared plus 31 squared minus 2 times those numbers times cosine of big B. And remember, you know it, so you can write it in there. And then again, you can type this whole thing into your calculator. And when you type the whole thing into your calculator, you get about 343.13. And that's B squared. So remember, you still have to take the square root. And when you do that, you get about 18.5. So now we know little b. And now you can, in your second step, take your cousins and find either A or C. You're going to find A first. You're going to go for the smaller angle first. So cross products. On the calculator, I should take sine of 25 times 15. And when I'm done, that amount should be the same as 18.5 times sine of A. So you will type the sine of 25 times 15 into your calculator. When you do that, let's move over here, you get about 6.34. And that means 6.34 is whatever 18.5 times sine of A is as well. So to get A by itself, I'm going to have to move the sign in the 18.5. First, I'm going to move the 18.5 by dividing. I'm going to get a decimal. That decimal is going to be about 0.34. And now to move the sign, you do inverse sign, sine negative 1, both sides. And when you take second sign of that decimal, that 0.34, you figure out big A is about 20 degrees. So big A is 20 degrees. And now I can find big C because the three angles add up to 180, so that means big C is going to be 135. All right, let's finish with number 10. So number 10 is a right triangle. You can use SOHCAHTOA, but actually, since you have to find everything, your law of sine, law of cosines will probably be faster. So I know big C, I know big A, and I know little c. Now, on the written answer key, I actually use sine, cosine, tangent. So maybe check that out just to get a different perspective on the problem. Okay. Um, so first thing I notice is I have cousins, but I can quickly find big B because my three angles are going to add up to 180. So I'm going to do that first. Big B is going to end up being 53. And I'm going to use my law of sines to find little a and little b. So cousins with a, I'm going to go ahead and type this into my calculator. So 20 times sine of 37 gives me about 12, maybe 12.04. And that means sine of 90 times a is the same thing. So now what I'm going to do is divide by sine of 90, which if you guys ever type into your calculator, you're going to see that it's actually just worth 1. So when I'm done, I actually get 12.04 as little a. And now I can do this again, but this time I'm going to use my cousins. And find little b. So cross products, 22 times sine of 53. I get about 17.57 rounded, and that means sine of 90 times b is the same amount. So to get b by itself, divide by sine of 90, which again, sine of 90 is really just worth 1. So when I divide, I get right what I started with, 17.57. That's little b. But for this one, I'm going to just put 17.6 into my answers. Okay? And that is learning objective 3. I'm going to stop this video here and do the other solving one on a different video.